A shocking moment in Texas yesterday. Former Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke, who is running for governor, by the way, is seen interrupting his rival governor, Greg Abbott, as he is currently briefing the nation on the Uvalde school shooting. Take a look.
Out of line and an embarrassment.
Sit down. The next shooting is right now, and you are doing nothing.
No, he needs to get his in. This isn't the place to talk this over.
This is totally predictable when you...
Sir, you're out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Sir, you are out of line.
Karl Rove is a former White House chief of staff and a Fox News contributor. That was just disgraceful. I mean, this is a moment when the entire nation, and more importantly, the families of the victims and loved ones, are trying to get information from their governor. And he comes out here and accuses Governor Abbott of doing nothing. What was he doing? He was trying to grieve along with the rest of the nation and also try to be sensitive to the parents. Beto O'Rourke clearly had one thing on his mind, and it was himself and not the victims' families.
Well said. If Robert Francis O'Rourke was accurate that it was entirely predictable, did he call 911? And to stand there and point his finger at the governor and wag it and say, "This is on you," this was a terrible moment a stunt, an attempt to sort of inject himself into the middle of this controversy in an entirely inappropriate way. There's plenty of time for him to make political recriminations, but at least let the bodies be buried of those children and let their families grieve without turning it into a political circus.
So he was
Robert Francis O'Rourke.
He was ushered out. He had a press conference, a lot of reporters there, and a CBS reporter who was inside that theater said this.
There were two people across the aisle from me, and a moment before the press conference started, they got up from their seats when Beto walked in. So they were seat holders for him, and then he sat down. This seems something very clearly staged by Beto O'Rourke. Okay,
so listen, there's going to be a governor's race this fall, and we'll see which way it falls. Literally. 3 weeks ago, we put out a poll on gun violence in America. Here's what we asked. What's more likely to decrease gun violence? 54% say tougher gun crime penalties. About a third said tighter gun restrictions. What about this debate in states like Texas today, Karl?
Well, look, the one thing that came out yesterday in the last few days is local officials in Uvalde said that they lack sufficient resources for mental health issues. Think about this. This is a young man who had an absent father, shuttled between the homes of his mother and his grandmother. There was an absence of, a family that surrounded this young man and would be able to detect these kind of impulses and deal with them. And the local mayor, Don McLaughlin, who's I think a longtime fixture in Uvalde, said one of the problems was the county just simply doesn't have enough mental health resources. So, both of the answers that were given in the poll are, traditional, but we need to do something to find a way to identify people who are at risk like this, and if at all possible, help them before they lose control.
You're right about him being shuttled between two homes, his parents and his grandparents on the other side. The mayor told us yesterday that he was a bit of a loner prior to the pandemic, and during COVID, he just dropped out. And Karl, it took a while for people to find people who knew him in that small town of Uvalde.
Yeah. Well, and look, as a society, we have, family matters. Having a stable family helps make for stable individuals. And, shuttle between his mother and his grandmother, God knows where his father was in all of this. His father lived in Uvalde, but was, his parents were clearly at odds with each other, and the father doesn't appear to have played a significant role in life. And God bless the law enforcement that as this started to happen, rushed to the sound of the guns and confronted the kid. And, I'm sure there is a Border Patrol agent who shot him who today got mixed feelings about having taken the life of a human being. But God bless him for stepping into this moment and stop the killing by, unfortunately, taking the life.
There have been laxed gun laws in the state of Texas. Basically conceal and carry. You can carry a weapon now. You do not need to conceal it. There are laws that some would argue, if I argue the other side here, that there is no reason why anyone should have to be able to go into a gun store and buy an automatic rifle. This guy bought several weapons, over 300 rounds of ammunition, so he was obviously clearly on a mission. When somebody sells a gun to an 18-year-old who's buying over 300 rounds of ammunition and an AR-15 and a handgun and all these other weapons, there seems to me like that might be a red flag. There is no background check. It's a sensitive issue because obviously you don't want to step on Second Amendment rights, but at the same time, there's got to be some kind of accountability to looking into who it is that's purchasing these weapons, and that's kind of a fine line.
Yeah, first of all, there is a background check that he had to go through. And second of all, look, this is Uvalde. This is southwest of San Antonio, down in brush country. I go hunting down there. It is not unusual for somebody to walk into a gun store and get a lot of rounds of ammunition. I went hunting pigs about 50 miles away from there from a helicopter and shot a lot of shells. So this is a different kind of, this is not New York, this is not, Washington, D.C., this is not San Francisco. This is a place where people routinely hunt, routinely have weapons. But the question is, how do you stop these things from happening? That you have a choice. We could be like Australia and basically deny people the right to own a firearm, or we're going to have to find ways to try and identify people who are at risk, and either make them give them the help they need, or deny them the ability to quickly purchase a weapon.
Yeah. Again, I'm just saying, automatic rifles, a 12-gauge shotgun.
It's not
gone
automatic.
Hunting.
It's not an automatic. It's semi-automatic. We do not allow the sale of automatic weapons in the United States. You can't go out and buy a machine gun. You have to pull a trigger, and each time you send a shell, and I admit you can pull a trigger pretty quick if you want to pull it.
Karl, we got to run, but thank you for your time, and this conversation will continue. Thank you.